or
Yeah,
Kelsey?
go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And as suggested, and as I already had in mind, we have the attendance by our new member in person, Scott Hudson, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You indicated you talked to all of us on the phone previously, but probably still wouldn't hurt if you want to just give us a thumbnail sketch of yourself and why you're here and what you expect to accomplish.
Sure. Well, basically, Reader's Digest version, we decided to retire and come here about, 4 years ago, we bought a lot. And up by 8th Street and north side of Cannon Beach. And we ended up selling our place in Eagle Crest, Central Oregon. That's where we were living at the time, and built a home. And about 2 years ago, we moved in. So we've been here about 2 years. And we wanted to kind of like add value to the community. So we joined the CERT team. I really enjoyed that. But then along came a thing called coronavirus. So everybody kind of went back in and sort of like put masks on, and we sort of sheltered for a while. And so we did that, and then an opportunity came up and to join this particular committee. And I thought it would be really good to add value. I've had a lot of experience, in industry. Prior to this, I'm not an engineer, but I can certainly add value, I think, just in common sense, and I certainly want to be a team member and just be able to add value to this group and really add value to Cannon Beach. I think that Cannon Beach is special, and I'd like to keep it that way. And so I'm here to listen. I'm here to help you with whatever I can do. I'm a pretty open person. What you see is what you get. So no hidden agendas, anything like that. And so I just look forward to being here. And my wife, we've been married like 58 years. We've got 14 grandkids and, the whole bit. So we just want to be part of the community and add some value. And that's about what it is. So anything else, you can ask me any questions you'd like. And
Welcome.
sure. But I did enjoy my conversations with all of you, the old Utah, Salt Lake City, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And Doug, your background, and Trevor, of course, I've worked with Trevor for a long time, and then Karen and Janae. I mean, I see her everywhere, and didn't even know that she owned a alarm business on the side, right? That's your side job, your side gig. And I haven't met the young lady. Kelsey, very good. Kelsey, I've got a lot of your emails.
The admin for Public Works. So.
And the last thing I want to add for this, before we start, is I got an email from Karen about the Eye on Water program. And Daryl Walker, which I've worked with a lot too in the past. And there were 391 members. And guess what? There's 392 now.
Woohoo!
I joined it, and guess what? I have no leaks.
That's what you want to see.
I'm proud of you.
That's right.
You can't be on the committee if you don't have eye on water.
That's right. You gotta have eye on water. So I've got
Welcome,
to.
Scott.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm here to help. Okay? That's it.
Awesome.
Okay, the next, go ahead, Karen. You want
I
to-
was just saying welcome and thanks for joining the committee.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate it.
All right, then, the next item on the agenda is approval of last month's minute, kind of a special situation. I know, Scott, you were attending a wedding or some sort of family deal, and my wife was having surgery, so I wasn't here. So I'm going to let, I did read them. They look fine, but I wasn't here. So you and I should probably abstain from the approval of the minutes.
Okay, fine.
Leave it.
I think if you read the minutes, like if you were part of it, if you read the minutes, you could still,
I won't be able to certify. I won't be able to, I always figure I'm certifying to their accuracy, and obviously I can't do that. But I could still.
you're gonna have to make the motion. because
Sure. I make a motion to accept the minutes as is into to the record.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Amber seconded it. And so I am going to abstain since I wasn't here. And so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that should do it, right, Kelsey?
Yeah, I actually don't think there's any reason to abstain.
All right, then I will reverse my position. I voted, my vote is in favor of approving the
I was
minutes.
gonna say, just to verify or clarify, because we've had a few times where we had members abstain for certain. Really, the only reason you'd abstain from a vote or input on something is if there's a conflict. So just because you were gone, you have a chance to read them. If there's anything you have a question or a concern
Okay.
about, so you can still vote, just
I
FYI.
just know we asked for
Okay.
changes, we asked for accuracy, so that's fine. I can go with that. So my vote is officially affirmative, and I assume. Scott-
Yes, it is. too.
Same,
And
so-
I also read them and watched the meeting.
Mhm.
Well, you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually watched the meeting and
Yeah. All right, then. So make that unanimous over there, Kelsey. All right, let's see. Did we get any public comment that needs to be addressed, Kelsey? No public comment. That's fine. And I did not see any utility relief requests. Did I miss any?
That is correct. We did not have any utility relief requests for this packet this time.
Okay, gee, we're all the way down to agenda item 5, Bruce.
You're late.
For 1 second.
Adjourn.
You can stay.
We're in a 2-minute office.
Yeah, well, this is good. It'll give us a little time on these next 3, which might take a little bit of time. And so we're on agenda number 5, which, and 5A is public works status, which would be Trevor and Karen.
So I had Kelsey add in the packet some of the stuff we had in last month, just because not everybody was here. So I wanted to make sure everybody saw it. If you have any questions, now's a good time to ask. But these are our basically our capital projects and our priority projects for the year. We made a administrative change, and you probably heard that in the council meeting if you were part of that. But what we took to council was the request to be able to do haystack pump station, because that was going to be funded based on loans. And it was going to be another 12 to 14 months before those loans came in. And it's Public Works opinion that that project cannot wait another 12 to 14 months. So we asked them to be able to take the funding that the budget committee had already given us for Midway and Siusla and use it for haystack so that we could move forward. The reason I chose Midway and Siusla is because those are pump stations that we're going to do building ads on to put the permanent generators in. And the generators just were part of the Fema application that we put in, hoping that we get grant money to pay for 4 generators, which included Midway, Siusla, Ecola, and Maine. And so we had the cart before the horse. We got funding for the building ad, but the generators aren't here yet. So we felt it was better to use the money for haystack, and we'll chase the loan money for Midway, Siusla if the generators come. Otherwise, there's no reason to do a building ad if we don't get the generators, because we don't have the money to buy them ourselves. Okay, so that's why that administrative change happened. It doesn't mean any project is any less critical than the other than just the pecking order of timing to get these done. Haystack, you know, is located on private property. So the time of year that we can actually do the maintenance and deal with everything that has to be done out there is critical that we do it a certain time of the year. So again, the amount of time it takes to get the loans through and fighting the time of year, we felt this was the best way to go. Okay. So other than that, everything that you see here is accurate as noted. Like I say, the Fema application, Kelsey did a phenomenal job on that. They sent an email back yesterday and asked us to put some attention to a few of the categories on the application before they'll move it ahead to the next phase. But I'm very hopeful, based on a preliminary call that we had with our FEMA contact, myself and Civil West, that we're going to get the funding for these. And so we're going to finish everything they've asked us on, submit it again, and hopefully it will go into the next phase. And I don't know when they're going to let us know if we got the money or not, but I'm hoping it won't take too long. So we'll cross our fingers on that. So that's kind of the status of that. The Pacific Waterline project is done. We were delayed a little bit on a couple of items, but OTAC was able to work with the contractor and get everything wrapped up. So that is finished completely. The only thing left that we want to do out there is put a hydrant, but that wasn't part of this exercise anyway, but it is part of the master plan piece of that water line replacement is to add a hydrant out there. So that's on the water team's list for this year. We're getting paving notices out right now for all the streets that are on the list, with the exception of Larch between 2nd and 1st. That's going to be done in the spring. So there's a lot of infrastructure improvements we have to do there before we pave that. And so those will begin this year, but the paving won't occur until the spring. But all the other streets on the list that you guys reviewed and approved, that's going to happen in September. And so those letters are going out. Kelsey's drafted them for me yesterday. Trevor's going to be making phone calls, and we're letting folks know. And everything is dependent on weather when it comes to paving. So we give them dates, but we always tell them within a margin of time, things could shift one way or another. If the paver calls and says it's too wet today, I can't pave. Okay. As you might have seen on Facebook, the Sitka stairs are done. They came out really nice. That was a very steep embankment that went down to a set of stairs that was really in disrepair. They were very old. So it was kind of a combination. We had a contractor come and build the bottom part of the stairs, and then the steep grade, we had an excavator come in and try to lower that grade so it approached the stairs a little bit more safely. And the roads and parks team put some stepping planks, if you will, that go down to the stairs. Huge improvement. Got a lot of really positive feedback. And then our number one stonemason on the team, Ryan Seinfeld, went out on Orford and did a improvement of that. That was a very, what do I want to say? It was just a trail down to the beach. It wasn't really stairs, and not necessarily a very safe beach access. So Ryan got some large stones, and we got the plan put together to create some stepping stones down to the beach on Orford. It's not our typical wood set of stairs because we didn't have the money to do both of those. We had only gotten money for Sitka and oak. But that beach access needed some attention. So Ryan took that project on. It came out great. And so some pictures of that was also on Facebook. Matanuska, we're in the process of working with the architect to get some revisions to our architectural design to accommodate the new generator. So we were able to purchase the generator for Matanuska. Before we get the cover on it, we want to get that new generator in there. So again, this is a chicken and the egg thing where the generators are delayed. So we're trying to get the generator here before we put the cover on. We have to spend the money we got for the cover within a 2-year period, and we're well into our year and a half of that loan. And so it's a timing thing that we have to really watch closely to make sure that we get the cover on it before our time is up. I've let the state know because of the market spikes with wood and steel and PVC piping that I may ask them for some grace on the time frame so that we're not putting this out to bid and it comes back way higher than what originally it was bid for or estimated at when I went to the budget committee and asked for money, and or when we applied for our grant money. And so they said they could work with me on that. So we're watching. Lumber's coming down, but not very fast. PVC pipe and whatnot is pretty much, it is what it is. It hasn't changed a whole lot. Steel has adjusted a little bit. So we're just keeping an eye on that. I'm working with some of the local contractors, giving me some input on what they're seeing. And then as soon as the architect is finished with that revision on the cover, we'll probably get ready to put that out to bid. And if it comes back horrendously high, then I'll contact DEQ that our loan is through and plead for some more timing. So that's the plan on Matanuska. Haystack, it's being engineered right now with the final. We had a pre-engineer done on it to be able to go to the budget committee and tell them what we were going to need for this and apply for our loans. And now we're doing the final engineering. We're hoping to get that out with a time frame of October, early November for the contractor to start the project and have it complete. So that's the timing on that. Let's see. What else, Trevor? Anything I'm forgetting?
Now you hit the stairs. If you get an opportunity to go down to Sitka and check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
We utilize the existing rope handrail, which looks cool. It's just a beach rope. Check it out.
Yeah, we saved the original rail. It was some steel, pegs, if you will, kind of pipes that somebody had put in with the rope, but it was all deteriorated. But the guys were able to salvage the metal stakes and then just put new roping. It looks really good. So
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that's pretty much the major stuff we have going on. Public Works did go back into a staggered schedule. As you've heard, there's been a small outbreak in the community, and within Clatsop County, the numbers are going up. So we felt it was best to be proactive and go ahead and go in that staggered schedule. So just like we were before, we have one man on site. If we have something that requires more than one person, we try to keep them apart. And otherwise, the rest of the guys work from home and they're ready for me to call and say, I need some help over here. And they dispatch from home without coming into the city. So the goal here is to keep the teams separate so that they don't, if somebody becomes infected, they don't impact their teammates and I don't end up with one entire team down, So and I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead. Whoever was speaking at the same
All
time.
right,
I'm sorry.
I think it was Steve.
Yeah, it was me. I just wanted to say thank you to Trevor and his team, working with the amount of people that have been here and the amount of projects that they're getting done and everything is just seems to be working just fine. But, behind the scenes, they're working like crazy and just everybody appreciates it that I've spoken with and recognize that you guys are taking care of business very well. So
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. I
Yes, thank you.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize how much time Trevor spends in the field, not just here in City Hall, but taking care of the customers to keep the phone from ringing, things from escalating, and to support the team that's out in the field. Sometimes he's just another hand to deliver things to site. And a lot of people don't see that. He is the hidden hero,
I'd like to add also, because I know Trevor, I've seen everything he does. He has tribal knowledge. And that is tough. You have boots on the ground. He has tribal knowledge.
well, your guys and you are all over the place. If you spend any time
Yes.
in town at all, you see all the stuff that
Yes, I
they're
agree.
responsible for, and it's just terrific. So thank you.
Talked about putting the tracker on me. See,
Exactly
I
right.
call him Tracker Trevor.
To get a long lasting battery on that.
Where's Waldo?
Okay, Amber, I think you had something.
Yeah, I have a few questions. So I wanted to, and I also want to just thank I would say backing up what Steve said, just thanking, the team for this I feel like we've had some really busy weeks and I think that the people have been pretty impossible downtown. And so I do think that I recognize how challenging that must be to kind of get work done and navigate. So I do want to second the thanks and the gratitude for that, just for our city, all of our city doing their jobs. So I have some questions though. And the first question that I have is, did we get any, I think Karen, the last meeting we talked about I guess this relates to the paving work and the street condition status. You mentioned that you had put out kind of a request for a contract to find out about how drones could be helpful for street assessments. Have we heard anything back and what's the status on that?
well, I can speak about the drone thing. I'm currently in the process of being certified to be a drone operator. We purchased 2 drones here at the city, and we're getting several of our staff members and police department certified to be able to perform drone work. And that's something that we want to look at in the future once we get,
Yeah, I think what Amber's talking about is the contractor that's leading the TSP effort with
Oh.
Jeff had talked
Yeah.
to us about the the drone process that they have access to that would tell us the conditions of our streets. I just haven't gotten to that, Amber, as far as a serious inquiry on what it would cost us. I've just had greater priorities, but that is
Yeah.
something that we're going to be looking at for next year. I have let that contractor know that I'd like more information about that. And I'm interested in getting pricing for a town that's our size on what we would be facing. But
Yeah.
it's not a contract that I'm putting out to bid at this time because I don't have the funds to chase it for this year.
Okay. I was just
Okay.
curious about, I was that. And then I have, I guess, a couple just questions that come up as people, I don't know about other committee members, but I think when people in town know that you're on the Public Works Committee or probably any committee, they ask you questions
Yeah.
about what they see going on in town. So I get hit with those. So I feel an obligation to ask these questions just so that I can say.
That's
I
great.
asked.
And you can always come and ask questions. But I'd rather you ask than to have misinformation out on the street,
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So like, I guess, for example, one of the questions that I keep getting asked, and I don't know, is the activity level at the top of Warren Way with lots of public work trucks going up and down Warren Way, like back on the logging roads, like what's going on back there? And
So let's talk about Warren Way for a minute. Thank you for bringing that up because that is a project that is active. The engineer was completing his, design for us to put it out to bid. It has to go to ODOT because we got our funding partly through small city business allotment, and ODOT has to sign off on what we're doing with that intersection, even though they don't own the streets, we do. They're part of the approval process. And they questioned 2 of the ramps that we're putting out there from an ADA perspective. They felt the engineer's numbers were off on his measurements. And so they went with the engineer out to the site. They all discussed it. He's making the revisions as we speak to that plan, given the draft to ODOT to sign off on, and we're waiting for them to send it back saying they agree with everything that's on it. And then it'll be ready to put out to bid. Most likely that project won't happen until the spring. And again, that's going to be one that we have to try to fight the timing because we'd want it to be done before Easter break. And because it concerns landscaping, there's a couple of times during the year that ideally is when you want to be putting down sod or planting plants, and especially pouring concrete. So it's a timing thing right now. It's going to be the spring most likely. And I've been letting the Talavana Inn know as the progress has gone with the project. So until ODOT gives us their final blessing, I can't put it out to bid yet.
I think we were talking about a slightly different thing, though. That's useful and helpful too. I mean, the section of gravel road that's a Greenwood Resources road that's between the Fraleys and Morgan's property, the greenhouse.
I just didn't understand.
The dump site.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we're making modifications. We have a dump site up there, a clean spoil site. So we're making modifications up there for sedimentation and erosion control in anticipation for the rainy events that'll be occurring this winter.
So we have permits that they give, DEQ gives us to be able to use that for clean spoils. And what clean spoils is it is dirt work, either ditching alongside the streets, or when we're doing paving of a street, we'll have soil that's underneath the asphalt that's considered clean. It doesn't have asphalt, concrete, or any kind of vegetation in it. We can use that site to deposit those soils. Anything that doesn't fall within the clean soils has to be dumped at another location. And as you know, a couple of years ago, we went through a real crisis where those sites were closing because they were filling up. So none of the contractors that were trying to do jobs for us had places to dump the debris. And so we got with Greenwood, we talked with DEQ, and we looked at any potential places where the city could deposit their own debris. It saves money on projects, but it also saved windshield time for the contractor. The closest location at the time was up in Astoria. And so we developed that site. We own it. So obviously we weren't having to get approval from any other landowner, but there were a lot of hoops we had to go through to get the permits to allow us to do it. And this year, the permits were due for renewal. They're every 3 years. And so they changed the way we had to do our permits based on how we're going to be using it. Because at first, we really weren't sure how often we were going to use it because it depends on the projects that get funded. And so you don't know what you don't know until you get your budget, and then you kind of know how often you're going to use it. So that whole process with DEQ, we're in the middle of renewing those. They changed the type of permits they had originally given us. Now that we know a little bit more about it. And like Trevor said, they're requiring us to improve the site to where we can control any kind of runoff. There's not any kind of a stream or open corridor near that site that would harm that water. We're not depositing things that are toxic. We've pulled, I don't know,
3
approximately
samples.
25 or 30 soil samples and sent it into a lab for evaluation. And they all passed with no issues. So we've had to do quite a bit this year just to get our permit renewed. So we have 2 different permits that we're working with DEQ. One is an exemption based on the soil results. It came back that we won't have to renew that permit. But what I have to do is notify them if we're changing the way we're using that site at all. And we don't expect that to be the case. So if they decided to build a city hall up there or do any kind of construction, that would be a change in the condition of that site. And we would notify DEQ. The other one is the ground disturbance permit. So it's based on the size of the area that we're utilizing to deposit our soils. And that changed from a 1 acre to a 6 acre size. And this is something DEQ required us to do. It wasn't the city's option. And that's where all the fencing and erosion control and whatnot that you see if you walk up there and see that. So these are all things that DEQ has required us to do in order to get those permits renewed.
Got it. That helps. Thanks. That like answers it, I think, very thorough. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Hang on a second, Amber. Bruce had something to add. Bruce, why don't you come up to the table because they can't hear you back there.
For the record, Bruce St. Dennis, City Manager. Karen mentioned the City Hall as part of the discussion that's going on up in that location. That is not something that the city is pursuing. That is something that I believe somebody that was not favorable to our use of that property was trying to say that, you know, that's something that they're planning in the future and this may work against them or something. So while the Southwind site, actually it's not even Southwind, is it?
Mhm.
Is it? Okay. The Southwind site is still on the list. It's not one that's being pursued actively at this time. But if you hear about us going up there, that was just an opponent of our permit.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Anything else, Amber?
I think the only one which corresponds to kind of everything is there a way, because I feel like, you know, I love that there's all the sharing about their master plan and the status and everything, especially what was included in the packet and just sharing it again. I think that's super helpful. Is there, because I feel like there's a lot of local, maybe smaller, I don't even know if it's considered smaller kind of activity that the public works is doing that people ask about. And so it's like, I don't know, they're just doing their job. And so is there a way of kind of finding out like main lines being replaced and things like that, you know, I don't know if it merits us talking about or just kind of understanding for the sake of people asking questions and wanting to know.
Yeah, I think with our major projects, those are we inform the community on our major projects, but you know, we have a lot of little things that we're constantly doing out there, and
Yeah,
of
for us
course.
to notify, you know, each and every ditch we're cleaning out or manhole
yeah.
we're raising.
That's
It's
not what I
just
meant.
not feasible, but we try to inform people for our major projects, water shut-offs, paving, any disturbances to your driveway. We try to notify the people that it's going to be affecting.
So many of our projects are predicated on subcontractors that we need to get these jobs done. So
Yeah,
for instance,
that makes sense.
paving, we have to have Bayview and we're at the mercy of their schedule when getting stuff done. So things can be very spontaneous, if you will. We've agreed to a September timeframe for these streets that I just mentioned. But Paul just told me this morning that if Bayview has an opening, they're going to come sooner. So this is what causes Trevor and I to scramble,
Yes.
trying to notify people, because we're such a little city compared to some of the other sister cities that they work us in when they get an opening on the schedule. And we really can't refuse that. We're kind of at the mercy of those subcontractors. The same thing with a lot of these other projects that involve excavating. Again, our jobs are so small compared to some of the other cities that they just work us in, and they can give us kind of a time frame on when they think they're going to be here to do it. And we're basically reacting that. We have tried to put our foot down and tell these contractors we need a more specific date. And I'm just telling you, folks, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
As much as we really tried to pin them down, if we want the work done, we have to be flexible with their schedule, or we just have to go work with somebody else.
Here's something, for instance, we're going to be, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to be completing our striping in town. It took an extra 2 months just to get the paint supplies. We were
Yes.
supposed to complete the project in the spring, but paint supplies weren't available at that time. So I just received the paint supplies yesterday. I called my guy. He's going to try to get us in the schedule in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So he'll come into town in the middle of the night. You might hear somebody out there with a weed blower blowing off the street. And that's what they're doing, is they're going to be finishing the normal routine of striping crosswalks, bike lanes, stuff like that.
This last year to 2 years with all the COVID and all the supply chain issues has really made our process quite challenging from what we would normally do. If you guys remember when Carolyn was here, she wanted us to start a project master plan list that we keep on the website. We do that, but to put the dates on when this stuff's going to happen would be more than what we could keep up with. I mean, we'd have to hire a project manager just to try to keep up with this, make the phone calls, knock the doors, send the letters. I mean, it's very time consuming. And so we've tried to dial that in as tight as we possibly can. And we do a lot of things spontaneously. Even our guys out in the field, they'll go and knock on the doors and let people know that they're here today versus next week, or that it's been delayed or whatever. So we really try the best we can to keep people abreast of the projects. We use the monthly bulletin. We use Facebook. And I realize not everybody does Facebook, but luckily we've got some community folks that are really good at letting the folks that don't use Facebook know that something's been posted. They're kind of my town criers, and I'll make a phone call and say, can you help me out and let your contacts that don't use Facebook know about these projects, So that's about the best we can do to keep everybody apprised. That copy with the counselor, things come up, we let them know what's happening. Obviously the council meetings, I'm really not sure what more we can do than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's more about just asking the question that gets asked to me. So I want to just make sure that, I'm asking the questions, and I think that it's reasonable what you're saying, because it would be hard to keep track of all of the little ones, especially with the sliding time schedule. And my one final, and then I'll let it all go, is just out of protocol, is there a way, so for example, if there are topics, for example, that some of the committees are really committee members are really interested in, like, for example, in the master plan, like the water supply needs and alternatives, just wondering about, like future land conservation and future land acquisition for water, conservation purposes. If there were a couple committee members, for example, that were really interested in that, and for example, the public works team, the staff doesn't have the time to work on things like that, has there ever been a formation of like a subcommittee to deal with things like that, or add extra bandwidth where members that might be interested in working on sub projects? And I think Carolyn told me that there used to be sort of functioning maybe informally that way, but I wanted to ask.
Well, you must have been having lunch with Mr. Morgan over the weekend, because he notified me over the weekend and sent me a link to an article of exactly that. But yes and no on your question and your comments. Mm-hmm. When Carolyn was here, a lot of our efforts around conservation started before we did the utility rate project where we dove
Yeah.
in and actually looked at how our water was being billed. And the council asked Bruce to do an assessment of our current water source and our capacity and what we felt we could provide to the city as a whole. We hired an engineering firm that cost us quite a bit of money to do a total evaluation of that. That report was presented to the council last year, or maybe been 18 months ago now. I can send you a copy of that. We are not at risk of running out of water. That's the bottom line. I think the engineer's report mentioned the year 2036 as a year that we may reassess where we are. But it doesn't mean that we don't have efforts around conservation. And that's one of the reasons why I took the meter module project to the council and to the budget committee and asked them to allow us to put the meter modules on so that people could monitor their usage, repair their leaks faster. We also brought the leak detection team in 2 years and had them evaluate the entire town for leaks. I mean, there's been excessive focus on conservation and repairing leaks and not letting water just run all the way down to the spigots in our park that people use to rinse off their feet that was constantly dripping. Those were replaced. So there's been a lot of effort, Amber, around water conservation, and that continues. I'm
sorry. Continue.
The next step towards that is changing our ordinance, which you guys are working on, to consider how many leak reliefs that people can apply for, so that we drive the expectation that people are more aware of water they're using and to fix their leaks when those happen, and they don't wait for Daryl to make a phone call saying they're on the leak list. They can monitor it through Ion Water.
Right. I read that report and I talked to Carolyn kind of extensively about that water quality and quantity report that was done. And that was all super helpful. I guess I'm talking about just with as everybody is experiencing our rapidly changing climate. I don't know that report factors that in. And so I'm just saying that given that everything seems very unpredictable, all climate kind of globally seems very unpredictable at these times, that it would seem prudent that we wouldn't, we would keep a thumb on it basically. And so I'm just saying, and that was just one example that I was giving about water or our future of water and that kind of thing.
Sure. If the Public Works Committee wants to take on an effort around that to see, the next level that we can go with water conservation, you guys are absolutely free to do that as a charter if you want to do that. I know that there's been discussions, Amber, about us adding to our watershed. So that is always something that's on the table. And I think that we actively talk to Greenwood about properties that may be available to the city that could add to our watershed that has a different originating point than what our water currently comes from. So that is all something that's still out there available at this point. Greenwood has not presented to the city any particular parcel of property that they're willing to let go of that the city could seriously consider. There has been some conversations in the past, but there isn't any currently underway. So until that presents itself, that's not something the city could not necessarily chase.
And Karen, Greenwood contacts us first whenever they have a parcel that they want to sell.
I would say, as far as conservation goes right now, under the Ion Water and so forth, I think the best thing we can do is promote people signing up for Ion.
Yes.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
That would be a big step toward.
That would be a nice little project.
And awareness of what's going on.
Especially our second homeowners, because that's usually the people that we get calls from saying, they were on the leak list and they're not here in town. Could a city employee go check something out? Well, our folks can't work on private property. So we always send them to either a property management, a private plumber, whatever. It would be really helpful for as many of those second homeowners as possible to get signed up. And most of them are pretty savvy anyway. When they have second homes, they're usually paying their bills online. So this technology is nothing that would be difficult for them. And that would be a fantastic thing. I know that Hermiston has the same meter modules we do. They've hovered right around that 30 to 35% take rate on people signing up. So that's been a challenge to get them, get their customers signed up as well. I'd really like to see us push towards at least 50%, if not better,
Yes.
of people signing up.
Is
That would
there
be-
any resource? Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any
No, no.
resources for people asking? Like, so for example, if somebody doesn't know how to do it or they feel uncomfortable, because our population is largely older in Cannon Beach. And so I can imagine that some of these things, apps and whatnot, are intimidating. Is there any help or resources to say, like, this is how you do it, even if it might seem super basic?
Well, when they do the module change out, there's what I'll call a cheat sheet or a tutorial that's written that's left behind for them. And then Kelsey follows up in 30 days with a reminder letter and sends them that same information. So they have 2 opportunities to be reminded to get signed up. And we also give them a phone number that they can call in and we'll walk them through it on the phone. And it's just super simple.
Okay.
You know, most of the time Daryl tries to catch them right out of the gate.
Got to brainstorm backflow. It's an annual process and it could be linked with a reminder. Are you on ion water? During that same process.
Yeah.
It would be very customer friendly. And just a reminder of, hey, get on the program.
Mhm.
Because they have to do the annual backflow anyway.
Just for, on like irrigation, you mean?
Yeah, you have to have the backflow check, you know, it's.
But only if you have an irrigation system.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
some people.
Yeah, I know, but it's gonna be fairly limited.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Put something in the city's bulletin, but I talked to Daryl and Daniel and Sean of their interest of making a video, like a tutorial and walking someone through ion water and showing screenshots.
Exactly.
And walking someone through signing up.
Great.
We could put it on the city's YouTube channel, just like our city council meetings and whatnot are. And that'd be another place that people could go to try to get some help to, you know, sign up.
So I think we're kind of drifting into the next topic. Would it be acceptable for everybody if we moved on to the,
I agree.
we okay? Okay, all right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really kind of relevant what we were just talking about. So just a little bit to the benefit of Steve, but more for you, Scott. This topic that we're moving into, it came up about 2 or 3 years ago on leak relief. And we, at that point, we kind of decided to just kind of table it.
Okay.
And then we've re-energized it recently. And basically what you find is if you look at other water districts, other municipalities, generally speaking, they all grant some relief for water leaks in some format.
Okay.
They all have a definition of what's a leak, what's excessive use. Most of them have time limitations on how long a leak can last to get an adjustment. Some have either a dollar amount or a percentage or other limits on the adjustment. Most of the time, the account holder has to provide proof of repair. Yet there's time limits on when they have to submit the form for relief. And in most cases, the sewer part of the bill is not really considered because in most municipalities that I looked at, the sewer is run by a separate district or agency.
Okay.
So only the water district is looking at their concern there on the leakage. Here in Cannon Beach is a little bit different because the sewer system and the water system are both run by Cannon Beach. And so the Public Works Department, I guess years ago, was charged with, and it's in one of the municipal codes here, that one of our duties, and it's in your packet here, is to look at and examine, here it is to look at, committees shall evaluate claims for excess sewer charges related to water leakage not flowing into the wastewater treatment system. So when we look at these leak adjustments, we are only looking at the possibility of giving them relief from the sewer portion of the bill. We don't give them relief for the actual water usage. And that gives us, that what makes us a bit of an outlier. And that's not necessarily wrong or bad, but we wanted to revisit this one more time in light of a couple of things. At least in my mind, rates are going to be going up quite a bit on the water side. We have new technology. And so once again, I pulled out all my research on the other jurisdictions. And more importantly, I went back and I looked at minutes from our past meetings where we discussed this and kicked it around. And so on your first document there, what I tried to do with those first bullets is kind of capture what people have said, whether it's Karen or Trevor or me or other people on the committee of things that they would like to see. And notwithstanding, as Karen said, our study shows that we're not at risk of running out of water. And a lot of this is my personal opinion. We'll talk about it in a minute, obviously, is my first bullet says any modification projects an increase in water conservation over time, or at a minimum, a net neutral. Meaning if we come up with a policy, just in what I've seen in the last, few years, is the culture and the goal of both Public Works and the community at large is very strong on water conservation. So it seems to me like anything we could come up with, it mathematically, engineering, you could possibly project over time, it's actually going to be a net savings of actually water if people, follow the program and we do this. So we actually, over time, it will result in better maintenance, better accountability on people using technology and so forth. And it actually would not, at a minimum, would not increase water loss. And the second bullet is, we're just talking about that, is to try to incentivize the use of newly installed implemented leak detection feature of the ion water software incorporated on the currently underwater meter module project, which I think, Karen, we're scheduled to complete on October 31st. And I think in your last email, you said our customer sign-up rate is at about 30%. I kind of look at it like the vaccination, the closer we can get to herd immunity, the better this technology is going to work. So any incentive or that we can come up with, I think is good. And I think I've also seen, and Trevor, I think you pointed this out, we've got a certain cadre of account holders out there that simply choose to pay the bill rather than addressing systemic problems with their system. And sort of the frequent flyers, large leakers, and try to come up with a scenario that would de-incentivize their choice of doing that. And then the main principle is to provide some partial monetary relief for customers who experience accidental, unintended leaks despite proper maintenance and diligence by the customer, or partially mitigate the increased rates. And also use, hopefully, the interaction when these leaks occur, as a customer education opportunity, if we can figure out a way to do that, particularly ion water. And Trevor, I think this was your point. I pulled these all out of minutes, is try to do whatever we do, if we do anything, is to keep the rules for leak relief as simple as possible and not get bogged down in something real complicated. So these bottom bullets are just kind of an amalgam of what other districts do, somewhat cater to us. They're just ideas. One of the things is if somebody came in for relief under whatever program we might come up with, should they be an ion water user to be eligible for relief? Just throwing that out. That's the time. That would be the time to educate them about the availability, get them signed up. Say, you don't get this one, but in the future you could get it if you sign up. All the jurisdictions have limitations on time, and frequency. Probably the more common one is 2 leak adjustment requests over a 5-year period, but they vary. Most of them have monetary limitations, or at least some of them do. Meaning you're only going to get X amount of dollar relief. A lot of them have percentage limitations. So if you had a leak amount of this much, you're only going to get relief for 50% of that usage. So your customer is still responsible for a portion of the actual leakage amount. Perhaps a cubic feet limitation, so that this is a long ways from any type of blank check for the customer. And again, this kind of goes to the maintenance of the system. And I didn't necessarily pull the next one out of any jurisdiction, but I think we do see we see repeated requests for the same service line. And in my view, there should be some limitation on that. And I think we've decided we don't really have any policy for that, really, written policy. And so that needs to be considered. And I pulled the next bullet out of the Hermiston one that you referred to, Karen. The commercial accounts with large complex leaks must submit a detailed leak repair plan approved by the city to be eligible for relief. So I don't know, maybe a hotel has multiple lines that keep coming back. Say, look, if you want relief, we need a repair plan submitted to the city for your internal system there before you be eligible for relief. And just mechanically, it looks like, borrowing from Hermiston again, and trying to keep it simple, I only saw, and this is, maybe the city attorney eventually have to look at it, I only saw one possible change that would have to be made in the ordinance itself, and that would be the one that I indicated in expanding our jurisdiction. I'm looking for that, where the policy and right here it is. It would only be to 2.34020, which would be I just threw out down some language there that we could also look at unintended water leaks under policies developed by the committee and approved by the council. It looks like that's the way Hermiston did it, is they just submitted the developed policy of whatever their committee is, and the council approved it. So to me, that might be the mechanics of it. And I probably talked too long, but just as far as, this isn't a decision-making meeting. I'm going to throw out the information once again, sort of a super straw man suggestions, have a little discussion. I don't know if the October 31st is really a hard deadline for us to make a decision on this. So I still think we have time, but I think we're kind of getting to a point where we either need to continue to look at this, focus it down, and have some future meetings where we really get down to the nitty gritty based on the array of information, or whether, once again, we're just going to toss it. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute.
I think you're right on track with your bulletized items. Then as a committee, you guys decide how you want to refine these items, what you want to take off, what you want to keep on. And then we can take the ordinance and actually incorporate these things in it and bring you a draft back for your review, instead of you guys trying to write it. Just give me the components that you want to make sure is included and what you want to strike out of the current one, and I can get you a draft put together. Okay, so if you guys focus on this list and how the current one is written, what you want to strike out of there, then.
Okay.
Right, but I think, I think, and then just a fork in the road here, it's the same thing. I think maybe we can get away from doing a detailed change in the actual ordinance, because right now the ordinance is very simple. It says Public Works Committee, you can review this. And then we came up with, on our form for the sewer relief, our own policy. And in Hermiston's case, there is a specific policy which was adopted by the city council.
Okay.
I just think that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You guys write it, or you guys come up with what you think would work after we do our thing in terms of language. But I'm not sure if the ordinance would be expanded like that.
I don't know. I'd have to get with Jennifer and Bruce
Right.
and find out how they want to do it as far as how the city traditionally handles
Sure,
things, whether it
absolutely.
be via ordinance or we have departmental policies, like a public works policy. That doesn't necessarily go to the council. We advise them that that's being done, but it doesn't require council approval, whereas the ordinance goes for their approval. Because this would involve credits to people. I think the ordinance would probably be more applicable. However, we don't want to get something in an ordinance that every time we want to make a change to it, it's got to go back to council. So let me talk to Bruce and Jennifer and see the best way to do it. And that'll just be a logistics thing. Let's just refine kind of what you want the rules of the road to be, and we'll decide if it needs to be ordinance or a policy.
Or adopted resolution.
Right. And then as far as the date, the October 31st, that's just when the project is due to be completed. So that's not a hard and fast for this effort, but we would want to take something to the council, within a reasonable time of the project being completed, so that people know that now that these are in place and the city's made this investment, here's the expectation, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have time on it. It's not hard and fast, but I wouldn't want it to go on for another 6 months or
Neither
so.
would I.
No, and I think that the brainstorm, the nugget I picked out is the incentive.
Yeah.
We could actually come up with an incentive that's constructive and that also benefits the customer. I think that would do a lot to get it more enrollment and focus on the conservation, because it's saving them money and it's saving us water. That is the main thing, conserving water. So I like that idea. I don't, they play with it.
My only comment to that is that the ion water can either be used as, in my mind, either a carrot or a stick, or maybe both.
Yes.
And if there's a way and the ion water technology, I would hope, could be a vehicle to come up with a new and coherent water leak relief policy. They're really quite separate in terms of.
And you want something that's self-driven. You don't have to sit there and babysit it. It's driven because someone wants to have it happen.
Yeah.
And you get everybody involved that's part of the city. And that way you've got everybody going for the same carrot or enrollment. But, that to me, I think works if it's properly done.
I agree.
Yeah.
Steve?
Well, one caveat that we could put in here is we don't give any relief for anybody that's not signed up for ion water.
Yeah, that was my first bullet.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's common sense.
That's
I agree
a
with
tough
that.
one though, because there are going to be some elders that live here that don't have ion water. They're not technically savvy. They don't have family here that could help them. And that is the one thing that the council and the budget committee expressed to me was their concern, because we are a retirement dominated community. We don't have a lot of tech savvy people here. So the expectation that everybody has it or they don't get a relief is going to be a pushback from the council. Just
It might be, and we could provide some technical
assistance.
assistance.
We do in
Yeah.
several different forms, as Karen's described. Bill.
Sure.
I actually
Yeah.
think it would be the other way. If they will get a relief if they do the ion.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that would be a win-win situation.
Here's the cookie.
And even if they're elderly or anything, they will come up with a way to do it. Let me tell you.
Yes.
I guarantee you.
We will help them come up with a way.
Here's your treat.
I will be personally in charge. But I think
You guys are.
But I think
Yeah.
that's the way to do it, not say, no, if you don't have it, you don't get it. Because, you're gonna make some people upset. If you say, you will get it, but let's help you get this set up for you.
Fantastic.
And then you
I
will-
agree.
Situation.
The other way around is prevention. This
Yeah,
way, we're
exactly. I
waiting
mean,
till the leak
yeah.
occurs though, until requiring it instead of preventing a leak.
Being
or
proactive.
Preventing wasted water in the
It's
first place.
proactive.
But
But can I,
Totally.
I
oh,
mean, this is one of those things, yeah.
We're coming
I
back
think-
to. Go
okay,
ahead.
I think that there's only one concern, which would be that I love what Janae just said about the incentive to get people to have the flexibility to be able to say, okay, maybe you had a barrier to why you couldn't do ion water, and we could help eliminate that barrier, which is great. But I think there's the other piece, which through maybe the languaging would be that just because they have ion water doesn't give them an automatic pass to getting out of a leak. So that would be the other concern, would be that I have ion water and I have that, which means that just because you have it doesn't mean you automatically get relief.
no, that would just be the first hurdle.
Well, yeah,
Right.
Right, and then we get down to the specifics of
Correct.
restrictions on the policy.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Proof of repair, blah, blah,
Right,
blah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Phase two, good.
Well, we're coming up on 10 here. It sounds like is there a consensus that we want to keep looking at this
Yeah.
and digging into
I do.
it and refining it?
Yes.
Okay, so, good. So we obviously need to, set up a block of time to hone this and talk
Yeah.
about it some more.
Mhm.
So I don't know, is there a good, doesn't necessarily have to be next month, but we need half an hour at least or more. Is there a consensus about when you want to do that? We could do it next month. We could do it in October.
Well, we can do it next month. I mean, I don't see why we
Okay.
can't do it next month.
Yeah, if you keep your agenda light next
Yeah.
month, you can use your meeting as a work session.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Sounds like that's what
Oh,
the
yeah.
committee wants to do over there,
Love
Kelsey.
it.
So I was 30 minutes, it might stretch into 45 for next month.
What they want, I won't come in at all next month because things really slowed down when I got.
You didn't slow down when you came in.
I don't know.
That's it.
Here comes the judge, here comes the judge.
All right, so that'll be the plan on that. We'll just keep going. And I don't think I think everything's kind of laid out here. But if anybody has anything they want to submit in writing, that's fine. But I think we've got, in my mind, enough material here to work with.
If you guys have anything to submit, send it to Kelsey and she'll gather it to add to your
Okay.
stuff
Correct.
for the next month's meeting.
Correct.
If you think of something after the meeting's done, just shoot an email to her and she'll gather it to get it to the list.
wonderful.
Okay, so if it's all right, we'll move on to the last item and we're reasonably close to being on time. And this is largely for Steve and Scott. So we had a chairman she'd been on the committee quite a while and she was the chairman, Carolyn, and very knowledgeable, extremely value added.
Mhm.
And she moved out of Cannon Beach, I think in March, I may have that right. So we were at that point without a chairman. And I was vice chairman. And so there was some discussion back in March about what being vice chairman means. We didn't really have a policy. Is it like, the president of the United States and the vice chairman moves up? Or how did we want to do it? And so what we settled on is, and I'll just read you the minutes from the meeting here real quick. We went back and forth and I said, I would be chair, but I wanted to think about it, the process there. So I said, Labonte asked if Craner was not willing to serve as chair. Craner said that that's not the case, but just that the new members coming on board would have a say on who the chair is. Craner is planning to re-up when his term expires later this year, which I did. And he's willing to be chairman for a longer period, but he wants the two new members to have a say. So that would be you guys, actually. So this isn't really that huge of a decision because, am I right, Kelsey, in January, we elect.
Correct. In the ordinance establishing this committee, you are required at the first meeting of every calendar year to elect a chair for that year. So if Doug continued to serve as interim, it would be another 4 months worth of meetings basically, before we'd have a new chair anyway, or possibly the same chair renewed. So it was something we wanted to bring back up again. We can either, move forward at the next meeting with, electing an official chair for 3 months, or, we can kind of keep going with the interim scenario. So I wanted to bring that back as a discussion point for you guys to figure out how you wanted to handle this.
So everybody kind of understand that it's not really an issue, just, I wanted to bring it back, as Kelsey said, in August, and just so we can revisit it. I'm perfectly fine with the situation, which is myself as interim chair and Janae as interim vice chair, but I wanted to revisit in August in case there was consensus of the committee that they wanted to do something different for the remainder of the term here, which, like you say, would be September, October, November, and December.
I'm in for you.
I don't know, we need to take.
We don't need to do anything. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're fine keeping the way, I mean, I don't see that they would have any issues. I don't.
No, not at all. We need a quarterback.
Okay, so.
You're in there. You're in the huddle.
Amber, you all right?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I think it's fine. I think one of the things that I think Karen remembers me asking as far as being a committee member was just really understanding kind of the role of the chair and the role of the vice chair and the responsibilities that go with each one of those roles. And so I think just making sure that whoever steps into that, either in January or in the new year, is just a bit, has the time and the capability to do that. And so I guess that's my only piece that I wanted to add before we close.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say the minutes will reflect that when we continue in the current status for September, October, November, December, and then in January, we'll do our normally scheduled election of a chair and vice chair. Okay. All right. So the catch-all good of the order, anything else?
I'd like to add just one thing, just as a new member. What I've kind of like picked up here is I think the committee is a great team here, and that there are priority interrupts that happen all the time in the city. So I think you're very nimble. And that's the word I use. You have to be nimble and address those. So it's impossible to have everything on a written up objective, but you have the major ones. So just good job. Keep those priority interrupts. Right? So I just wanted to add that as just my own personal observation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And also, I'm watching them work. The priority is always set by what's the right thing to do.
Yes,
No, so
That can change frequently.
very, yes.
Like for
that's the nimble part.
And that's the nimble.
All right, final call. All right, meeting is adjourned then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey,
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Outstanding.
thanks, you guys.
Oh, yeah.